Hello and welcome to episode 4 of All Things Quantum Touch with Renée Morris and Shelly L. Liedtke. On today's episode of our regular visits about quantum touch, we'll be answering the question, is it ever painful to receive quantum touch energy? Hi everyone, welcome to All Things Quantum Touch, episode 4. And today we're going to be talking about the question, can any pain or discomfort come up during a quantum touch session? So we're going to be talking about that and giving some examples. And definitely, if you have any questions or comments, we invite you to comment down below the video and we'll get back with you. Anyway, Renee and I have been visiting for just a moment before we started this video, and we had some ideas of how we can talk about this subject, because occasionally during a quantum touch session, there can be discomforts that come up or a cathartic release. And so we want to talk about what that is like or what can happen, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable to receive a quantum touch session, but that doesn't mean someone's being harmed or that any damage is taking place. So we want to understand what's happening when that occurs. So Renee, would you like to start out with a comment?
Sure, I would love to. It's great to be back with you, Shelly. I always enjoy our little chats. And this is a great question. In my experience, I'm a fairly new practitioner, but I have done a lot of sessions. And in my experience, this phenomenon of somebody maybe experiencing a discomfort during their session, of pain, or some type of emotional release, it is very rare, but it can happen. So I've had clients on the rare occasion experience that either during a session or sometimes the next day, but usually the next day it's more in the form of an emotional release rather than, say, physical sensations. So, for example, I've had, say, one client who during their session, they suddenly experienced a sharp discomfort going up their leg. It wasn't related to the area that we were working on, but I always tell my clients before the session to please let me know, communicate to me if they do experience a discomfort, because then we can adjust our strategy, and so I can be aware of what they're experiencing and change where I'm focused accordingly. So I had that client, it didn't last very long. It was very random. So I don't really know what that is about, but during a session, energy is shifting, things are calibrating, things are happening. And many clients will experience very little sensations, and some I feel are just more in touch with what is going on in their body, how they feel in their body. So they're more in tune with these subtle sensations that could come up. I had another client who had just a little brief hint of a headache that came and then disappeared. So these type of things can happen. People can have emotional releases. Most of my clients who come to me, the clients that I attract tend to have emotional and mental concerns. So that is more the realm that I'm working in. And so it's not that uncommon for them to feel emotions come up, not always really pleasant emotions, but I see it as just energy moving and something is releasing. So it can kick things up and then it lets it go. So that can happen during a session or the next day. And what happens after a session is done, the energy continues to integrate for, say, up to 3 days. And there can be a process. And to me, it feels like just there's movement happening, things are sorting themselves out and getting back to balance. So these things do happen. And I know, Shelly, you've been a practitioner for a lot longer than I have been, and you're an instructor. So I'm sure you have many examples of this happening. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on why it happens. Is there cause for concern? What to do about it? How you deal with it when it happens with your clients? So I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Okay. So I have a couple of examples, a couple of my own my own personal life. In my family, we have a genetic hip issue that some of our young ones in our household have been born with a genetic hip problem, which involved setting the hips and casting, like full body cast, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
quite uncomfortable. So I had a problem with it, and we didn't know, and until I was in my adulthood years, and uh, so nothing really could be done about it. I just had to struggle with it. So I've not been able to run or play like, the other children would play because it would hurt when I would run. So what I've done with the quantum touch for myself over the years is I will send energy to my hips, and I will have the pain level die down, and then later it would come in waves, and so then I would send energy again. And as I've done that over the years, the pain has diminished, and it's longer and longer in between the times of discomfort that I have with my hips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's an example I can give. That's a personal one that I have. Um, it because that has affected like my ability to go on hikes, my ability to ride an upright bike. I use a recumbent trike because of that, and I walk. I don't jog or run, so I can take care of my body and not end up in pain. But if I do end up in pain, I know I can send um, energy, life force energy to myself with quantum touch techniques and help alleviate that pain, and help diminish it. But because it's a lifelong challenge, I'm going to say, or I guess we could call it adventure. um, and it's something I was born with, and is a challenge that the only thing I can figure my soul came to work through and work with. And so I send energy, and like I mentioned in my interview with Jennifer on Quantum Touch Radio, we talked about using gratitude, and gratitude is an element of quantum touch. It's a foundational energy of it, one sending the life force energy. Um, so having gratitude for that challenge has helped shift it out even more for me. Even though I don't fully understand what's happening and why I have this happening, or why this is happening in our family, because it's more than one family member, and it's across families, like into my cousins and stuff. So it's not
Oh,
just
wow.
in my personal family, like my siblings. So this is a generational thing that's happening, and it may take time to work itself through. Will I get it taken care of all the way in this lifetime? I have no idea, but I trust that as I send energy, it will resolve itself even more, and possibly work out into the generational lines for my children as well as my siblings and my cousins. So that's one example. Um,
Yeah, so that would be something that I like to use the word momentum. That seems to carry a lot of momentum in your, say, energetic field. So I've experienced that with some clients who, it doesn't necessarily, I do believe that miracles can happen, especially when we're working in the quantum field. But some things do seem to carry more momentum and aren't necessarily going to be all better after one session per se, but that it can be, the energy work can be used to help in that process, to support the person in healing themselves in that process, and maybe alleviate their experience of it. But that this momentum, especially if it's something that is across your family, and from that you've had from such a young age, and from being born, and so that's something to consider also, is that these deeply held things we don't necessarily understand what is going on there, and we don't need to, but it helps to know that the energy work is helping, but that there is this element of momentum that sometimes is carried with a particular circumstance or condition in a person's life too.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I like to liken this to, like discomforts that could come during a session, is in our first episode, we talked about being the hollow bone. Like our Native American culture offers that vision for us of being the hollow bone, meaning allowing the life force energy to flow through us to another. So the bone is not changed from, say, pouring water through it. Just like when we hook up the hose to the faucet outside on our house, then the hose is not changed because the water runs through it, right? So let's give the example of turning the spigot on the faucet. That would represent using the quantum touch techniques to get the energy up and running as the practitioner. And again, the client, the one who is receiving the energy, is considered to be the healer in the quantum touch system. So at that point, then the hose itself would represent, in this little example, the practitioner holding that space of allowing the life force energy to flow through them. They're not flowing their own energy. The practitioner doesn't send their own energy to that person. By doing the quantum touch techniques, it allows the life force energy to flow through them like the hose, and the water representing the life force energy flowing through the hose to a bucket maybe that we have sitting on the lawn. And let's say that bucket has a lot of silt in it. Maybe it's got a little bit of gravel or whatever, or some sand, and we want to clean it out. So that sand or that gravel could represent the healer or the client having discomforts or pains that they're coming to the practitioner to help them dissolve or wash away, so to speak. So now the practitioner sends the water into the bucket, and of course it's going to make the water in the bucket get all cloudy. It's going to stir up that silt, and if it's been sitting, if that discomfort, or the silt in this case, has been sitting there for a long time, maybe it's caked in there, maybe it's stuck, and it's been in there for years and years. It may take several quote unquote sessions to get that discomfort moved through, and it might not happen in just one session. And there might be releases, emotional releases, or maybe even some physical discomforts that might occur after the session is offered. That doesn't mean that something went wrong. It just means, oh, we're moving the energy now. It's getting flowing, and it's actually having movement instead of being stuck there, which is a discomfort, having something like that sitting there stuck. So that, I feel like, is a good example of a session in a nutshell, with this little parable example of what are we talking about here, or what can happen during a session.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I feel, you know, as you mentioned, it is the client who is doing the healing. So, and all healing, as they say in Quantum Touch, all healing is self-healing. And healing isn't always necessarily comfortable, because we've often been a certain way for a long time, and we're going to somewhere new, which is better. It's a kind of growth, a restoration of balance, a development, and that in between is kind of space that we haven't been in probably for a very long time. Maybe when we were kids, or when we were just born, we were in that space, but we haven't been there for a long time. So it can be uncomfortable. And so, and I think often, because I work mainly in the realm of emotions, Generally, when we are healing ourselves emotionally, so there's kind of ups and downs. It doesn't always feel 100% great. And that can manifest itself in different ways. But we know that in this movement that we're doing of releasing things, of coming to clarity, of doing the work, that we're going in the right direction. So we know we're here, we want to get there. We might have to go on a little bit bumpy road sometimes. So I think it's important for people to allow for that, because it's growing, it's not comfortable for the caterpillar has to go through a whole process to become a butterfly, a very, very dramatic process of its transformation that I'm sure isn't all rainbows and good times for the caterpillar. So it's the same in all levels of self-healing in our own selves. So I think it's important to recognize that, also to take responsibility for that, to just know that we're on this journey. And usually when people are brought to this work, it's because they're on a self-healing journey. And so they're kind of willing to go there in order to get to the destination that they desire. So I think it's important. I think it's great that we're talking about this tonight and today, and also to let people know that things can come up during their session, and that it can be sometimes little discomforts or different types of releases, and that it can be all of the process, part of the process. Although in my experience, it has been very rare that I've had a client experience this. What about you? Do you see this as a regular occurrence, or as something that happens once in a blue moon?
Well, I've had some interesting experiences. And I want to emphasize here for anyone who's listening, of course, when we're chuckling about this, we've had personal experiences, Renee and I, where we've had some major discomforts come up in our healing process. So we're not taking this lightly by any means, but we've had some very uncomfortable situations that we've done in our own personal journey of self-healing. If I shared some of the stuff, you'd be, oh my goodness. So that's why if we don't have some lightheartedness regarding some of these things, we might be in danger of creating more discomfort. So bringing that element of lightheartedness in where we can, even if there is a struggle or a discomfort, can be a great boon to our healing process, as well as that gratitude piece and loving ourselves, being patient with ourselves and have compassion for ourselves and others. And yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that really quick. Because we're laughing near you or with you, not at any discomfort, for sure.
Oh gosh, no, that's
Yeah,
it.
so I did want to clarify that. But sometimes people can end up coughing or sneezing or crying or having anger feelings coming up, or like forgiveness issues could come to the forefront. Like Louise Hay has done so much work in the area of like emotions or things that can be associated with specific body parts. So if anybody wants to look up Louise's books on that, but it's the same principle. There's frequencies or vibrations or vibes, as we want to say, that can get stuck or trapped in certain areas and exhibit in interesting ways in our bodies. Another little example I have, my daughter, she was 9 when she took the first QuantumTouch class that we actually took it together, and she had so much fun. And after that class, I had accidentally burned my thumb on the stove. We have a glass top stove, and I didn't realize the one burner was really hot. And I touched my thumb on it, and it was one of those ones that immediately turned white, on because it was a deeper burn. And so I asked her if she could send some quantum touch to me. And I knew she wasn't going to last very long. Children don't have the ability to sit and just send energy for a long session. But I sat down on the couch by her. She said that she would send energy to me. And I told her, I said, just vision a piece of ice. Put a big, like my thumb is in a big piece of ice. And she did the techniques for about 5 to 8 minutes. And it stopped burning, but in that process, it kicked up more. The burning kicked up more, and then it diminished. And then she said she was done. But it was effective even in those few little minutes, because it never blistered. It just went, I mean, you could see that something had happened to it, but the skin toughened up, and it didn't ever blister like you would expect something like that to do. I give that example because during that little session, the pain kicked up and then it diminished, and the symptoms were able to more easily resolve themselves than one would imagine. So, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is just follows in the truth that sometimes healing, it's a journey. There are discomforts, you know, if we cut ourselves, and as it heals, as the skin knits together, sometimes we have different sensations that aren't always pleasant as it's healing itself, and itchiness or soreness. The same is the case with all aspects of our being, that sometimes things can come up in the healing process. And so, yes, we are very, very compassionate, even though, of course, yes, it's good to bring a lighthearted attitude towards it. It's really important to communicate with the practitioner during a session if you have things that are coming up that are uncomfortable, or, you know, the sensations that aren't pleasant, so that the practitioner can be aware of what you're experiencing and can adjust their approach accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much, Shelly. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I think that people will really appreciate hearing about this aspect of quantum touch as well.
Yes, it's important. I feel like this is one of the reasons that I feel like genuinely and sincerely that this is a major life skill to know, because we can use quantum touch at any moment and any place and anywhere. Say if you were on a hike and you were out away from being able to get to help rapidly, that you would be able to send yourself quantum touch energy while you're getting help. I know this sounds cheesy because we're talking about quantum touch, but I really sincerely feel like the more people that know quantum touch, the better our communities would be able to support one another, and as individuals in our households as well.
I completely agree. And I'm all for the cheesiness, because I use quantum touch literally every day. I don't necessarily always do full sessions on myself every day, but definitely several times a week. And then I do it kind of in smaller increments depending on what comes up in my day. And it has been transformative for me on all levels, mind, body, and spirit. So I feel that, like you said, it is a life skill, and I'm happy to spread the good word about it.
Yeah, sure.
And to present myself as a living example of and share with people how it has helped me to transform my life. So I think that's really important as well, and hopefully people will be attracted to the work and be curious to try it out.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Shelly. Yeah, I always enjoy talking with you.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching this episode of All Things Quantum Touch. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us via the links in the description below. See you next time when we discuss the question, do I need to be intuitive when I use quantum touch?